chair for the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. He's also the party leader of the People Democratic Party, Mr. Omingo Magara. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Betty.
All right, so I want us to start from something that you mentioned there, that the government and the presidency right now has to form an inclusive government. First of all, the word inclusive, has been, touted in very many different conversations. And for CMD, what exactly do you mean by inclusive government?
First, let me start, Betty, by saying that CMD is a member organization of all political parties represented in Parliament, and we do have our members there, and the issues we do discuss and agree mostly and consensusly without having to put a vote. Now, I am not talking about sharing powers to individuals, because again, when we take that to a boardroom, it even loses the meaning of that inclusivity bit. What we are talking as CMD is, yes, people are talking about issues of legitimacy, so-and-so is not properly elected, and so is having a half a population not represented. But what we forget in context is that the kind of document we have today is the winner takes it all. In fact, even the previous elections, if you remember, at least now the Constitution gave us an enhancement of 50+1. There are times where you had some president winning with 42% in the previous regime. So what we're saying here is, in every respect, there are people who are going to agonize and the others are going to be happy. What we are saying is that the one who has been given the mandate to represent, to lead this country, need to extend an olive branch to include the Kenyan population, not individuals. I think we miss it out when we say so-and-so has not been factored in my government. It's not about individuals. It's about the Kenyan population having a face of Kenya in the inclusive government. But also, I remember when the president was talking in Kasarani, he did talk about extending and putting elections behind us. And ideally, to be honest with you, we have been in elections, some of us, and now have lost. If you lose maybe a relative or a loved one, and you cannot sit by the graveside and agonize time on end to be able to get what you want, because the baby won't come back or a loved one won't come back. What we're saying is, let us embrace each other and grow this country beyond individual interests and partisan interests. For example, even when I want to dialogue with you, for instance, it requires that, Betty, if I want to shake your hand, you must also open your arm for a grip that is connected. But you cannot shake my hand if I have a clenched fist. So what we're saying here is, both sides are divided. And from where I see it, CMD stands in that unique position because we represent both government and opposition. And if we could agree, and I think we did make a resolution that we want to form about a 7-member task force involving neutral, non-partisan negotiators to come and talk to people, both sides of the divide, to be able to engage and then move forward.
You said something to do with, if the president is forming a government, to form a government that has the face of Kenya. So are you removing the fact that, we have two different, very strong political divides, that's NASA and Jubilee. And of course, when you talk about a face of Kenya, you also have all these communities represented in this two, different political factions.
Yeah, it is true that some parties are strong in particular regions. But when the president has been given powers, he is necessarily become a party leader of that party, but a leader of all Kenyans, those who voted for him and who voted against him. And it is important to also realize that some members were saying, can we then increase the space of the executive to be able to reward every community? I can tell you, Betty, if that was to happen, it would never end. Then it would go to my clan has not been represented. Unfortunately, we have a document that binds even the executive, the president, from forming a government that is already prescribed. You can't do anything about. If he does what he does for 22 ministers, for instance, he has PSS. And I think the pie is sufficient for all of us. The only thing is that if I haven't gotten, then it is not gotten.
So inclusivity means that, hopefully all the tribes are represented in this government.
The face of Kenya.
The face of Kenya. Yeah. But also just going to the question of inclusivity, I was having a conversation yesterday with a governance expert, and he wanted us to delve deeper into this issue to do with inclusivity, because if I'm Betty Kyalo, and I'm put there in government to represent the people. Does it mean that because I'm in government, then my people in Mwingi or Kitui or Machakos will actually benefit from anything? Or is it a matter of ensuring that the resources actually get to the Mwananchi himself?
Before I answer that question, we flagged out several issues that cause discomfort in many people. For example, you're talking about inequality, which you're talking about. And if Betty Chalo was given that position, the challenge you've had in the past is that you start by looking back at my community. And therefore, somebody says, if I am not there, my community is already represented.
Yes.
And that's why the constitution was in its wisdom, we crafted in such a way that, like ministers who carry the nation, I mean, national issues must not come from politicians.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is it's how we have managed our offices that creates an appetite for everyone to have their own there. If you were to be fair, that a Kenyan who pays tax must be represented and rewarded and given services that they deserve, including fair distribution of jobs. And we're talking about, development, infrastructure development. Then I think the appetite for these offices are going to be to come down. And the other challenge we have is we also have a hang-on of the previous government system where the presidency had everything to do with the nation.
Yes.
To the extent, therefore, that we are so used to that office, ignoring that devolution also took powers from the presidency.
Yes.
I have seen cases, Betty, where even the president is challenged and he has actually had to rescind his position. The only thing is we must not focus on individual. If we were to look at the office and ensure that the office mandate is delivered to the people of Kenya, regardless whether they gave you a vote or not, they create the appetite for going to the center will be reduced. The other thing that was flagged out is the terrible, in some quarters, the ineffectiveness of devolution agenda, which has been a major concern that people actually stealing money.
Yes.
So money was supposed to go to people in Mwingi, for instance. It ends up being wasted.
Yes,
I can give you an example of a particular county where somebody said he's buying 400 cows for a few households to improve their worth. Betty, there is not even cow dung in that county, and money has been paid on paper. So this is the kind of things we want to do, and that we want to impress upon the president. He should be ruthless on looters. I think if I was to advise Mr. President today, he has to be ruthless on the thieves so that he can be an example to the rest. After all, he doesn't have to look back on his shoulders. He has a legacy to keep,
He has a legacy.
and he better does it right.
All right, and talking about that legacy, this week we're expecting him to give us a list of cabinet secretaries, nominees, and together with the principal secretaries. And here we are talking about inclusivity and, his government having the face of Kenya. But then what should be priority? Should it be competence of the people who were supposed to hold these offices, or is it a matter of looking at, okay, this person, we kind of like have to give back to this community because they gave us a number of votes during the election period? What should take precedence?
I think I am not competent to advise, but if I were to advise, there is no inadequacy in every community with a competent person to deliver. We are not going to deliver because Umingo stood in the podium and shouted the loudest from on top of my voice that I am supporting X. It must also go hand in hand with what credential do I carry, for instance. We have had people who have really had an opaque past, and that used to happen in the past, and they're still enjoying the limelight. And what we're asking is, can we then, one issue is to give the face of Kenya, but not any face. We need service delivered. In fact, that's why we're hurting. Where we're hurting is because sometimes we want to reward communities for the sake of community reward. You cannot say that in the entire Kitui, we only have one person who can deliver.
Yes.
There are a couple of them. What we need to do, go through the sieve, go through even the back history, because we do not live in isolation. People know who Betty Chalo is. And if they know who you are, for sure, a background check, and the government has a system of doing that, can tell you Betty will deliver if they're given a challenge. And if your hand is used to dipping in the jar, you're not going to stop because you're elected minister to represent a community. In fact, what you do, you are perfecting the art. And these people are known.
Yeah.
So as he chooses the government, which I have absolutely no control over, he must look at credibility, integrity question, and people have a track record. And I'm sure we don't have a scarcity of the same.
We don't have scarcity. Going back to the political question that is still lingering in the country, on Tuesday, Raila Odinga has said that, he's going to be sworn into office as the people's president. What is the stake, or what is the stand of CMD with regard to this?
I must say that even in NASA fraternity, we have our membership.
Yes.
And one thing that we have always stood by is governance. And if we want to do things, and if you had me speak, we don't mind anybody want to claim positions, but can it be done within the premise of the law and the Constitution? Now, I don't want to anticipate what's going to happen on Tuesday, but if it's backed by law and fact, and remember, I also carry members of the other side in CMD, we'll wait to see what happens. But it has to be done with the law. If it's backed by the law, and not necessarily then dividing the country, because there is an article in the Constitution that talks about anyone who wants to form a government that is not properly blah, blah, it could be unconstitutional. But we're saying we need to work within the law. And we do hope, even as that is being crafted, because I don't understand how it's going to work. How it's crafted as a chair of CMD, I would advise that it better be within the law, because then we shall be actually cannibalizing our own principles and tenets of respect to the rule of law.
All right. We've also had this conversation, still on the same political question, about the two sides coming together to have dialogue. And the people who are asking, what is this dialogue all about? And I remember when you started the conversation, you said this inclusivity is not about, giving people, some certain, political positions, just to ensure that everybody is catered to. But with regard to CMD, what is this dialogue? Do you think, first of all, that there should be dialogue about the political question at hand? And what should that dialogue be all about?
Let me say this, Betty. The truth of the matter is we have issues.
Yes.
Really. I mean, if we say that we don't have issues, we will be lying to ourselves. But we need also to address the issues and do them within the legal framework. And of course, having to reduce this, stiff-neckedness of trying to look at it the way I see it, not the way Kenya looks at it. That's why I'm actually against rewarding Omingo, because I represent a party and I pretend to be talking on behalf of other people. But it is something that we need to embrace. But there has to be a structured way of engagement. In fact, our proposal that we did today was that we would want to involve a 7-member committee, which we're trying to craft how it's going to work, because we wanted to do it before the 26th election so we can get a formula before 26.
Right.
We were taken by events. And of course, these things are fluid. Okay, they move as per an hour per minute. So we actually are not tiring to do what we must do by asking our political party members to nominate people from various sectors to sit with us, to start engaging one another. Because I can tell you, grandstanding is not going to help anybody. And as long as we pretend that if I haven't gotten, it doesn't matter what happens. At the wider picture, my people that I want to serve are acting. For example, if you're talking about the tourism sector in the coast, it is not only the coastalians that are suffering. People who live in there, actually some of them are migrating. Hotels are a ghost towns. True. So let's think beyond ourselves. And that dialogue, discussions are critical. They must be structured. And then respect for one another. Because if I call you names, we're all human. I may shy away from engaging you tomorrow. So what we're saying is, can we tone down our languages? Can we tone down and, as I said, stretch your arm? If you want us to engage, let's have a firm grip that communicates what our physical body language is.
Interesting. All right, so we want to take a short commercial break, but we're coming back to continue with the conversation. You can also chime in. Hashtag, of course, is Newsdesk, or at Betty M. Kello. That's my Twitter handle. Tell me what you think about the conversation we are having that is really geared to try and move certain aspects of this country forward. So we'll take a break.